Okay, continuing in the Maharal, and see this Olam. Wasn't able to prepare quite as much this week because I was planning to get it earlier and things got messed up, so I got it kind of late. So at least part of it is prepared. This is on the subject of Torah. We're continuing examination of many of the Agadita, talking about the proper approach and hashkafa to look at learning Torah and how it's distinct from many other types of mitzvahs and other types of activities. Right, he starts with Perek Chelik, Sanhedrin, famous Perek of the Agadita in the Gemara. Durish Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Simun. Oh, my glasses. Kol hamashchir punav al divrei Torah b'olam hazeh HaKadosh Baruch Hu mavhik zivoy le'olam haba. So mashchir is from the word shochar, is from the word darkness, and person who like blackens his face in learning. It's hard to know exactly what that means through fasting or through whatever, some kinds of physical sacrifice or whatever that is involved in learning Torah day and night. So he says that anyone that takes that approach to Torah, suffering from the Torah, so in this world, so Hashem, so the midah keneged midah, he goes and rewards him that his face should be shining in Olam haba, glowing. Shneimar mar'ehu kalvonoin bucher ka'arozim. Omar Rabbi Tanchem ben Chanilai kol hamariv atzma. Here it specifically talks about starving himself, or tanesim, whatever. Al haTorah HaKadosh Baruch Hu masbioi lo'olam haba. So it's also the idea of he's causing himself to be hungry in this world for the Torah, and he is rewarded with that Hashem satisfies him in the world to come. Shneimar yirviyan mideshen beisechu v'nachal adonecha sashkem, referring to various forms of satisfaction. So the way he explains this is that, as we've been talking about before, is the Torah is something which is intellectual, it is spiritual, it is not physical. As opposed to other mitzvahs which specifically have actions involved with them, things that are specific to a specific time, or they're associated with particular objects, or whatever it is. Torah is totally devoid of any of these other things. It can be done any time, any place. It doesn't require, it can be done verbally, it can be done whatever way is necessary. It's not tied to a specific physical thing. So it's a totally spiritual occupation, and also it's something that takes place in the mind. It's basically Torah is something that takes place in thought. So it's not, again, associated with specific physical action. So this is Dover he dveikis hagumer b'Torah b'sila kagashmi. This is mamash dveikis. It's a kind of a clinging, a unification of the neshama and the seichel with the Torah, with Hashem, and it's getting rid of the gashmis. Even though most of the Torah, at least the Torah of Nigla, that is regarding studying mitzvahs in this world, that is dealing with physical objects very often. What are the halachas of how, the level of halacha anyway, what are the halachas of how we should deal with the world? But the kinds of abilities and the activity itself is something which involves the mind as opposed to the body. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu mavhik ziv shaloi le'olam habu shehi kiloi sichli bilti gashmi. So he's talking about olam habu, whether that's talking about the olam haneshamas in Gan Eden, or it's talking about olam habu after Tchias Mesim. In either case, he's saying that is a world that is basically transcends gashmius. It's not a physical world, really. So therefore, it doesn't have that connection with the physical. So therefore, it's appropriate that the involvement with the Torah is rewarded specifically in that kind of environment, and it's rewarded with this additional. It doesn't have the. Basically, his point here is that the physical is holding back from total involvement with the Torah. The more involved with the Torah you are, the less involved with the physical world you are. So he says that that's why the reward is to have even a greater spiritual and intellectual pleasure in the world which transcends the Gashmias. And the concept of the shuchor, the idea of the darkness, is the opposite of light, which is and it's specifically talking about a heder, that is taking away. It's an absence. So when the Torah flourishes in the absence of a preoccupation with Gashmis. The more into Gashmis you are, the more it obstructs the ability to learn Torah. So if you divorce yourself from involvement with the physical world, the more matzliach, the more successful you're going to be in the pursuit of Torah. So he says everything is found in light, and this is contrasting light and dark. So when you're in the light, you see things, you find things, you are enlightened, so to speak. Whereas when you're in the darkness, you don't see. It's taking things away. It's an absence of reality. You can't see what's really going on. So there's this idea of the ziv, of the shining of the face in Olam Haba, is again association of Olam Haba with light, and association with the physical world with darkness. So if a person he says, Mesim gifoy ba'olam hagashmi ge'ili hi nedar. So if a person considers his body, his physical presence in the physical world as if it's not here, then he's able to shitein loy betzias hagumer ba'olam hanivdil hi olam abu habilti gashmi. So then it's like zikin agazi. In other words, it's almost like this idea of zekam v'zenoifel, like a seesaw. One side goes up, the other side goes down. So they're kind of mutually exclusive in that way. The more you're into the physical world, the less you're able to be in the spiritual world, and vice versa. So you reduce your involvement in the physical world, and it increases your involvement in the world which is not Gashmi. The other factor is this idea of shlemus, that you receive from Hashem. Whereas the more you demonstrate your commitment and your involvement and prioritizing of the Torah, so Hashem rewards you with a shlemus, with a completeness that goes beyond something that you just find on your own. And this is something that besides the idea of that's the shlemus of Olam Haba, that's the satisfaction, the satisfaction that you get in Olam Haba, that's a fullness and a completeness that you feel as if that it's a world where there is no achilu shtia, there is no eating and drinking. It says tzadikim yoshvim yitoseihem b'roshehem v'nehanim miziv hashchina, like we have we talk about on the Seder night, the tzadikim sitting and basking in the light of Hashem with their crowns on, and they're just enjoying the ziv hashchina, the brightness of the shchina. So there is no quality or level or reward, I guess, from the king. Let's say there's nothing higher than. There's nothing higher to be connected with than the king himself, and he has a crown on his head. So that's the idea that Yitzhak Sehen, that the tzaddikim themselves share that crown in a sense, and they're enjoying that brightness and that light from the Shekhinah itself, which they are able to then to be makabel from Hashem. So We talked about this a lot on this year about from Amud Avoida about the concept of being mekabel, schar, of what we have to do in order to be able to accept the rewards from Hashem and not be embarrassed, or also the idea of the capacity to be able to receive that reward that Hashem wants to give us. Which he wants to give us very badly, and when he can't give us because of our averis are diminishing our ability to be able to mekabel, then it's causing pain to Hashem. But in any case, this idea, on the other hand, to talk about the ability to give schar, is the ability to be mekabel that schar. As long as we have distractions and we have other priorities that are taking up space in preventing our neshamas, let's say, to be able to expand, to be able to receive the maximum that they can receive and go to their highest level of perception. The real schar that Hashem wants to give us is a spiritual schar. The physical schar is just something that we have in this world, and this world is not forever either. And the kinds of rewards that we're promised are not physical rewards. They may be sometimes expressed in physical terms, but they're ultimately, where the real joy, the real pleasure is in the spiritual realm and not in the physical realm. So Hashem wants to be able to give us more of that. So to the extent that we prepare ourselves to receive that by, first of all, emptying ourselves from being filled up with physical, preoccupations, so that provides capacity simply by emptying ourselves out from, it talks about the header, that we're creating that void by not taking it up with physical things. And also we're increasing our capacity to receive simply by the endeavor of learning Torah. Torah expands our minds. It expands the neshama flourishes in an environment of Torah. So the more we're thinking about these things and we're involving ourselves with these concepts and going to ever higher levels, because the nature of Torah is that you learn something, and then once you've absorbed that kind of gets put into the background, and that generates even more questions or an ability to go to a higher level than you were before, and that's increasing your capacity. So now you've got what you learned before, you retain that, at least most of it, enough of at least a shema or something, some kind of impression that you had from the previous learning, and that opens up the level to be able to understand higher things that you weren't able to understand previously. And then you absorb those things, and you get more and more, and these treasures expand, but your capability to absorb expands also, because as you get to a higher level, now you can understand things that you couldn't understand before. So now, it's a constantly expanding thing, and that's what this whole process is really talking about. Okay, so he has another one. He says talks here about this idea of the relationship of a person who's really learning Torah with the Gashmis. And that is in Perek Oisin Pasin and Erevin. It says similarly this idea of light and dark, talking about Shechoiros ke'oirev b'mi atam moitzei sidrei ha'toira b'mi shemashkim emariv aleim b'beis ha'medrash. So there's an idea of Shechoiros ke'oirev. Oirev it plays on the word oirev, which is a crow or something. That who do you find the Sidrei Torah in those that get up early and stay up late in the Beis Medrash. The Beis Medrash as much as possible, day and night they're there as much as possible. So that's the Oirev is a play on the word for Mariv, right? So they stay up late in the Beis Medrash. Rabba Omar b'mishem mashchir punav aleim ka'oirev. So this is a reference to the idea of mashchir punav, that you blackening the face, like an oirev, which is a crow, which is black. Ruva Omar b'mishem mesim atzmoi albunav achzuri k'moi oirev. So apparently there's an attribute of the oirev of being cruel to its children. So how do you become cruel to your children? Because you don't give in to your children's desires for more gashmias, which would cause you to have to work more hours and to bring in more parnasa, to give more for your children. And you resist that tendency, which is part of human nature, it says, to give good things for your children. And you put them off or whatever, and just so that you're able to spend more time in Besmedrash. So that's considered to be a positive quality. Ki hudu Rav Ada bar Masna have ke uzle bei Rav amale de bisi niki ma avdi amala ike karmi ba agma ad kam. So he is talking about this particular Rav that went home, and his wife asked him, "What am I going to feed the children?" So he said, "Well, you can, there are reeds growing in the lake over there. You can go down to the lake and cut down some reeds and give that for the children to eat." This is a kind of an extreme example, but it's indicating this concept that, as he's going to explain, this idea of going against one's nature, which is to want everything good for the children, to spend that time for Torah instead. So he says, so a person is dovek b'Torah legamri ad shelo yipure mi'itoy. A person gets to the level where they're completely given over to the Torah and they don't separate themselves from it. In the Lord is because if not, you aren't really zoicha to the Torah. The way it's supposed to be. Yitzurek says, "Ached im hasichli." So again, and this is what's hard to understand, and I think it requires a little more explanation, because it's not something again that we're accustomed to today. Today, the world has become so physical, so tangible, and all the pleasures and all the things that we're used to, the comforts that we're used to in modern life. We hardly recognize that there's such a thing as dedicating oneself to Torah. And when we hear stories about the great sages, and even in modern times, those that sat in Bes Medrash day and night and didn't necessarily work for a living, which was supported by others very often, or they just lived with a very bare minimum. I know from personal experience a few of the Litvische Gedolim, that it's not so much about the Hasidische, but Litvische Gedolim, you see that they live very, very simply. Talking about big Gedolim Torah, they're like mamish minimum. They don't have anything, nice things or whatever. Very simple. But the idea is that it becomes the person's life to the point where they and the Torah are really one. Because if you're fighting with yourself, if you have, like I say, this kind of a dual loyalty, where you're partly into the world, things you enjoy, things that you want to do, things that ambitions that you have, in terms of physical things or whatever, accomplishments or a certain level of parnasa or whatever it is that your goal is to, something in the physical world. Inevitably, that's going to take you away from Torah, because Torah is the kind of thing where it has no limits. It doesn't have. You can't say it's ever enough. You can't say that you've ever achieved a certain level and now you don't have to go further. On the contrary, it's always opening up new questions and new discoveries and new things that opens up whole new vistas which you didn't even necessarily know were there, or that interests you in terms of investigating those things, or to master certain areas of the Torah that you did before. And it's impossible in a person's lifetime that they would be able to master, because it's not the idea, because it again is sichlius. It's not physical. It doesn't have boundaries. So therefore, whatever it just generates, it's constantly generating more and more. It's always, the more you have, the more you want, that kind of thing. Or the more that opens up to you that's possible. So there's no idea of ever fulfilling it and getting to a certain level and saying, okay, that's it now. I made it. Now I'm done. So that's the thing about it. So a person who is truly, into Torah, really, really, dedicated to the Torah, and is not looking at some kind of position he's going to achieve, or that he's going to, become Rosh Yeshiva, or he's going to gadol b'Torah, or something. People are going to look up to him. There's nothing like that. No. It's Torah lishma. In other words, this is for the Torah's sake and not for the sake of some kind of other motivations. So he has to be. He's being misached with the sichli. He's becoming unified with the seichel itself. That's becomes one unity. It's not a conflict. So that actually leads to the other quality, which is hasmada. We're talking about hasmada b'Torah, that a person just spends all his available time learning, because that just fills in all the gaps. Whenever it's possible to learn, he learns, because again, there's no resistance to that, and there's on the contrary, it's something that again draws in the person to want to do it all the more. So it's not something he's going to be, feel like he's had enough. So we talk about kavias itin l'Torah, the concept of dedicating certain hours to learning. So that is for a person who has to fit it into their day, as in their schedule, as being something that at least they make sure that every day they devote a certain amount of time. So the discipline is to be koivea itin, to say, from 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, that's my time for learning. So they devoted a certain time. But that time is really just a minimum. So if they're dedicated to learning, really on a regular basis, so that's the minimum. And then any other time that's available, they'll put in. But what he's talking about here is not that. A smada means unless you absolutely have to do something else, you're going to be learning. And we had talked about, I think the last time, about this idea of if a mitzvah can be done by somebody else, you let the other person do it, and you learn. If nobody else can do it, then you have to do it. So it's a mitzvah for you to do, specifically for you to do, and you have to do it. But then you can't learn. But otherwise, you should be learning. So that's the concept here. So he says. So he says, because the nature again of the Torah itself is that it's not limited by zman. It's not. It has no boundaries in terms of a certain amount of time that you devote to it. So if you're looking at it that way, with this limitation of time, basically you are not koine the Torah itself, because that's not really what the Torah is in its essence. The Torah is broader than that. So he says, there's a seichel she'eno tachas zman she'tzmidi b'zman. Okay, so before that's one. The Ruva, heder. He says she'iten atzmo el heder al divrei Torah. He's prepared to sacrifice, or prepared to give up things for the sake of the Torah. This is mashke punav al Torah. He is, and again the mashke, the idea of the darkness, that it's the absence of light. So it's an absence of anything else that would take him away from the Torah. And also this idea, if he doesn't de-emphasize his body, his bodily needs, then he's also not going to get there. Because again, the seichel and the body are, in a sense, opposites. And the goof, the body is moinea the seichel. It's something that is preventing the seichel from going where it wants to go. Because the goof is saying, but you need to take care of me. I have needs also. Don't you can't spend all your time doing this. Mm-hmm. So that's the hisnagdis, the opposition is coming from the goof. So the more the person trains himself not to listen to the goof so much and to be totally into the seichel, so then he's going to be more matzliach in the Torah itself. And then this idea of being cruel to the children. So he says this idea that his not the nefesh is already, which is like the chias, almost the animal aspect of the person, is by nature dedicated to the family, to the children, to the wife and the children, to give them everything, to be doing everything really for their sake. So the fact that he's able to be doiche adas shel udam mipnei Torah. She's seichel nivdul lekami. So again, the seichel nivdul is the idea that it's something that's not connected to anything else. The seichel is something that's separate. It's not bound to anything. So if a person is bound to their children more than they are to the seichel, then that's also something that's a competition. It's something that's taking precedence. It's becoming the priority. So the idea is to balance things, obviously, and today especially I wouldn't suggest that people do this, although there are people that do it, and if the wife is really taken on herself that she's going to be supporting the family basically in order that he should be able to learn as much as possible, then it can work out. So the idea is that, and the children also see that example of somebody who takes Torah so seriously. So, and if he's successful in it, and he shows the value of what kind of person you become when you're that dedicated, then they're going to be it's going to set an example for them as well. So that's the real example that's been set. So the point is that it's the fact that the person is so strongly committed to the Torah that it takes a precedence over his nature of the teva, then that shows how important it is. So it comes up that there's these three things that there is emphasizing. The mashkim mariv is the idea of spending the time. That's a complete devekus, a complete dedication. And then noisin gifoy al heder, being able to sacrifice and not look at the body. The body needs so much. And then it becomes sichli, the person himself becomes totally seichel and ruchnius. And the idea of being akzori on the children is that this idea of being mevatel, the natural tendencies and the natural nature of the person in order to dedicate that to Torah. Okay.
For today?
Yeah.
I want to thank everybody for the attention. This is another Shlomo today. So I hope to close it today, and we hope to see you B'ezrat Hashem next Sunday through the normal schedules again. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
What happened to Shlomo?
He was not well today.
Not well today.
He was sick, and then he started it up and asked me to close it.
Ah, I see.
So he was here. But
He was. I had a problem getting here today.
Yeah?
Yeah, the driver, I come from the Koilo in Meron.
Ah.
So the driver, I never have a problem. The driver let me off in
I see.
on Kearney Yesod. And this driver was like a new driver, and he made a big deal about it, that it's not a normal stop and this and that. So I had to go all the way to Pizza Rashbi, and from there I took a taxi, and I got so nice.
It was a...
Bit of a...
But you made it?
Yeah, Baruch Hashem, I got it.
Godsi had to go. Godsi had to go.
Yeah, he was sick this week.
Yes.
And then he was still not fully recovered.
He assured me, because he was coughing over the chips, he assured me he's not contagious.
No, it's almost gone. It's.
No, they're saying that, from the Ewige Judah. The Ewige Judah. And they say, it says that die Juden bringen Pest, Typhus, Leber, Cholera, andere Kranken und so weiter. Listen, does he have this set up in the morning?
No. Just
only Wednesday.
No. It's also on.
Because I was going to give over my thing. Will he be here tomorrow morning?
Oh, you wanted to do it?
Yes.
Oh, I just closed everything.
I'll do it tomorrow.